The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. Well, open line through until 1 o'clock. So text, email, call and WhatsApp. Well, so those plans for that major redevelopment in Lord Street will still go ahead. The planning application will be resubmitted at the end of this month. 14-storey building with a cinema, offices, shops and homes, and a bus information centre within the site. It's a bit okey-cokey, isn't it? In, out, shake it all about. Anyway, after plans were withdrawn by the co-developers, Wint, Lord Street Development Limited have confirmed it's hoping to go ahead with the development alone. Scheme is very much going ahead, they say, to create this landmark development for the benefit of Alaman residents and visitors. So the planning application was withdrawn, and now they're hoping to go ahead. We'll see then, won't we? The countdown is also on to TT 7 weeks on Monday. TT qualifying starts Monday 26th of May. And in just 52 days, thousands of people will descend on the Isle of Man to soak up the festival atmosphere. It's a little way off, but of course, if you're involved in TT, you know that the next 7 weeks are going to absolutely race by. And everything has to be in place. All the ducks have to be in a row. The Great North Air Ambulance negotiating its contract with Manxcare means it can now start planning for the TT as well. Yesterday, lots of points yesterday about the 20 mile per hour speed limit, and a note in from Gaz on 313 at about 8:15 a.m. the other week. There was a policeman with a speed camera at the end of Pit Lane peeping over the metal coving. So Tommy was saying that lots of people race down Glencrushery Road by the grandstand. No point, really, because there are traffic lights the other end, anyway, so you're not going to get anywhere quicker for racing down there. Oh, and yesterday, do you remember we were talking about that caller asked about when the flags are going to go out for TT, and will the planters be there? We got a note in from Douglas Council who said the flags always go out so they're ready for May the 1st. So hoping the flags will be there for May the 1st, and the planters will go out a few weeks afterwards, so they're at their peak, all in place before the TT. So the flags for May the 1st and the planters before TT. So we'll wait and watch and see. It always makes a nice spectacle with the flags there. All DOI workers have their own vans since COVID and take them home, says Gilly in Peel. Well, this has come up many, many times about people taking work vans and leaving them in residential areas. I'm sure it used to happen in the past, but work vans used to be a lot smaller than they are. Remember, they were like estate cars. Now, well, they're big, some of them very big, and they take up a big space on a residential road. And heaven forbid that an emergency vehicle couldn't get through. I wonder what your thoughts. Maybe you're on the wrong end of this. Maybe you have somebody in your road who parks a big van, a company van in your road, and there's nothing you can do about it. Obviously, they won't get a residence permit for it, but as long as your road is either unregulated for parking or it's out of hours, they're not going to get nicked. Quite what you do about it. Lots of companies now don't have compounds where vans can be parked. They save money by doing that, and consequently, people take vehicles home. Some people are genuinely on call. Others, well, we'll see. David's first with us now. Hi, David.
Hi, Randy. And I've sent you some stuff about the local government amendment bill, and I may sound a bit to the listeners anyway. This is very droll. But it's not. It's a serious issue as far as I'm concerned, Andy. And I'm speaking as one individual member from Onken here regarding this bill. this bill was brought forward by the new Minister for DOI, and she was made aware that the local authorities right around the island were concerned about Mr. Hooper's amendments to this particular bill. They were very draconian, and it could be construed as putting pressure on the local authorities when we're elected to look after our own areas.
I mean, in a nutshell, if you explain to the listener then, in a nutshell, what do you perceive that they're trying to do?
Well, the first thing I was going to say, because Mr. Hooper's amendments went through and were accepted by the DOI and the members of the Keys, I presume a majority of it, I haven't researched that, but I will, is that then it becomes the minister's bill, as far as I'm concerned. So Mr. Hooper gets away with it, what he's trying to do. And I've never found out at the minute what Mr. Hooper is up to. But one of the clauses in the bill says you can instruct a local authority to do something, like something different, or dig holes, or do this or the other, when it's not funded from the rates. And this is the issue. There are rate-funded issues which local authorities do, and our accounts go out, and you'll get a feel of what's gone on in a local authority area right around the island. But every local authority on the Isle of Man now is having concern and is writing to the MLCs. You've probably seen that little discussion in there where they're writing to the MLCs because the legislation goes there, and to ask the Legislative Council to look at it more in depth. And it's all to do with consultation. The minister seems to be, is the wrong word, in a bull in a china shop, running forward with all these particular issues. I'd love to find out where these issues were discussed, whether at a board meeting, the discussion with the political members that are in that department. And what is the ultimate aim? Is to get rid of the local authorities. I'm not quite sure.
Well, I mean, let's face it, there are people behind the scenes who want a lot less local authorities, a lot fewer local authorities, don't they? I mean, this whole thing about the 4+1 has been knocking around for years, hasn't it?
It has. But the other thing, I'll give you a little scenario on that as well. Look at what government's doing now, and can you just imagine in the future, right, a long way in the future, is if the government took over all the issues that the local authorities do right around the Isle of Man. Can you imagine what the nightmare would be? We're trying to get things done in your local area. They're going. The government's just going to say, for national things, we're going to do this, that, or the other. We're going to look after, and I'm going to be a little bit cruel, I suppose, look after the Douglas area, and the rest of us round the Isle of Man are going to get nothing or do nothing. And that's why we have. And I was listening to that fella yesterday. He was an absolute spot on. I don't know who the fella was. Actually, never heard him before. When he said the value of local authorities. And I just want to say there, you don't really know till something happens what the value of a local authority is when it can do things. And I listened to a news article just now saying some vandalism in Onken, right? Do you remember a couple of weeks ago I said to you about, I sent you the paperwork in, that from immediate effect, the police are no longer having a drop-in sanction.
That's right. And as you say, that was just dropped on Onken commissioners, wasn't it?
It was. And the other thing is, we don't even know, as far as I'm concerned, I'm sure that Clark doesn't know either, I'm not speaking on his behalf, but who is our liaison with the Eastern Sector now for the police? I did see the thing on Facebook last night where there must be a group of kids that are just, we used to call it Black Rabbit in the old days, knocking on doors and running away. But it was harmless fun. But when you're doing it constantly, it's not harmless fun anymore, is it, Andy?
Well,
that's
also, remember, tomorrow's end of term, and the schools are out then for about a month. So, really, I mean, something needs to happen soon. And in the end, it'll be down to parents and guardians, won't it?
Yeah. And if you can remember some time ago in Ridgeway Road, I'll not mention the husband there, but there was an altercation happened. The lady suddenly died, and there were kids up to no good. They're not all real bad. It just needs the consequences of something that happens they don't realise when you're elderly or old or you're causing stress to people, how that affects people. And that particular lady died.
Okay.
And we don't want that again.
I appreciate it. Thanks for calling today. Cheers.
Bye.
Now, 16 minutes past 12 on Manx Radio. If you're in the Onken area, if you can shed any light on this, just low-level hooliganism, if you like, and what may seem a bit of mischief. Well, one person's mischief is another person's malice. So let's hope, and particularly as the schools finish for term tomorrow, let's hope that doesn't escalate. We've had many times, and remember when we talk in the schools to the 16 and 17-year-olds, they say often young people get misrepresented. And of course, the vast majority of people, hence young people, are absolutely fine. But there will be some people who just take things too far. So we'll see. Text, email, call, WhatsApp. Oh, and Howard's on now. Hi, Howard.
Hello, Andy. I just listened to you at the introduction of the program, saying about the number of vehicles, etc. If you look around and you see the buses driving around, the various vehicles belonging to the DOI, the numbers are close to 1,000. Now, that's a large percentage of vehicles that are on the road. And as Chris just said to me now, he said you'll see private, well, you would imagine the private cars driving around with a number on them. And again, they're needed, in a sense, for what we term as district nurses, where they're driving around. But these are all under the, I'm assuming, the DOI. Now, that must be, if they're paying the vehicle tax, road tax on them, that must be an astronomical sum. But I think they have a very much reduced, if any, vehicle tax on their fleet. I may be wrong, might be just a peppercorn tax. But that's, 1,000 vehicles running around for a small place like this. It does, of course, include the buses and various other aspects and all vehicles. But up where I am, and when I'm living up here, we used to have 5 or 6 of these DOI infrastructures, they call them, and that didn't include the MUA ones, and they were always parked here overnight. But this must save, in a sense, the DOI a small fortune and not having to provide parking spaces for them.
I wonder if that's what's behind it as well, whether the DOI just simply can't get a marshalling yard, can't get a compound where they can put all their vehicles, and people take a smaller vehicle home because they're just putting the problem into residential areas.
Well, when I was working, we had parking at the airport for our own vehicles. But that was within a locked compound. But I had to take my car to work and come home in it. And I believe, well, I should imagine the lads down there now will be doing exactly the same. But previously, anybody that was working for the DOI, was the highway boys it was then, used to take the vehicles back to a depot. And what is the insurance on these things? If they're taking them home, and the benefit in kind, as you term it, is there if they're getting these things to run around and use them legitimately for personal use, what is the tax on the people? Is there an increase on the tax or reduction in their threshold because they're not having to provide themselves with a vehicle? If you were in a business, you see it on your tax form as benefit in kind, and that has to be declared. So these vehicles is parked outside people's houses. Is that considered benefit in kind, where they can use them legitimately for their own benefits at certain times? And as I say, okay, there's a good fleet of buses, the ambulances, fire service, and they'll all be listed. I don't know what the fire service and ambulances come under, whether it's the health service and the home affairs, but infrastructure, and you'll see it on the side of the vehicles, and the buses are run by the DOI, they're up, as I say, up round about the 1,000 mark, which is a considerable fleet for a small island.
Interesting point. Okay.
Okay.
All right, good to hear from you, Howard. Thanks for calling us today.
Take care. Bye now.
All right. Andy, talking yesterday about cruise ships and the benefit. Remember, the cruise ships, a lot of the time, block book the railways, which is very good for tourism. And remember, they probably paid up front, so if they don't turn up, we get paid anyway. You keep referring to the magical 29p per kilowatt hour. Quite right. You need to remember that regardless of whether or not the Eristane project goes ahead in the south of the Alaman, the price of electricity is going to rise over the years. Nothing stays the same. Get the picture, understand that, James, but I think we need to keep that as a marker just to know when they keep telling us, as they do keep telling us, that electricity will be cheaper in the future. If we accept that with the rate of inflation, that the 29p per kilowatt hour will creep up, well, let's make sure it doesn't leap up in the future. And we all need just to keep because in the end, it is we who will pay. It's we who will pay for the electricity that we consume. And at the back of the use of that electricity will be all the costs incurred by the government and the Manx Utilities Authority in putting up the wind farm at Eristane in the future. So the commissioning, the planning, the building, the maintenance, and possibly in 50, 60 years' time, the decommissioning of it. We're going to pay it. Nobody else. It's been a disaster, this is 134R, since Lonnan, Laxey and Mackle were merged. The late chairman promised rates will be cheaper, but for all of us in Garth, but Mackle may well as be on the moon for all that is done, for all the money that goes on Laxey. The commissioners never do a thing about, oh dear, dogmuck, fly tipping and vandalism. And since they merged our rates, they're 3 times what they were. I say get rid of the lot and start again. Well, that's 134's words. Dave said, Andy, I'm a blue badge guide, tour guide, and I'd like to know why the mountain roads closed for 3 weeks during the tourism season, including Easter. I had 2 TT course lap tours booked in, which I've had to cancel due to the closure. Don't DOI realise the course is an attraction out of race dates and the visitors would like to see it? Also, why are we now seeing more work and road closures on the course? This never used to happen, and now it means that the roads throughout the course and the island are closed for about 2 months in the year in total, not just the 4 weeks of TT and MGP. Nowhere on the Isle of Man is more than an hour away, so what's the rush to save a few minutes at 30, not 20? This is, again, 134. There's always been a third less accident involving children and adults since last summer in the new 20-mile-per-hour zones by the end of the year. That's 800 less injuries, fewer injuries, and dozens of young lives saved, but it works. Of course, if it were your child or grandchild, people would moan. The news about the mountain road is new readers start here. It was due to be closed yesterday, but the machine wasn't working, so it's been postponed. The road's now going to close between the bungalow and the Craig Monday morning, next Monday, 7th of April at 9:30. It's closed 24/7, so all day, all night, till Friday the 11th. So all next week, Monday to Friday, closed between the bungalow and the Craig. The road will then close the week after from Monday the 14th at 9:30 to Thursday the 17th from the bungalow to Ramsey. Businesses on the mountain will be open as normal. So next week, the bungalow to the Craig, the week after, the bungalow to Ramsey. Messages coming in. You should see the amount of Land Rover Freelander management vehicles that the MUA has. Most are used for weekend shopping. You see them in the supermarket. Well, take a few photos then. Do they get a tax implication for that? Government departments and Manx Telecom are told to take the works vehicles home due to lack of parking at depots and headquarters. There are 5 telecom vans parked in Harbour Road, Onken, every night and at weekends, says Pat. Well, it was never designed for that. And as there are more and more private cars, what's the implication? Just a question from Joe on 963. There are camper vans parked behind Lord Street bus station that have been there nearly a year, if not more. They're covered in green algae and they've been there that long with off-island registration. Not sure if it's English or European. Tyres are going down. No tax discs. Is that legal because it's a private car park? Well, nobody quite knows, do they? Is that a car park or what is it? It was a car park, then it got taken away and the machines were taken away, and now it's and I don't know if any of our off-island visitors stand at what we laughingly call a bus station. Heavens above, the weeds are almost becoming a fixture there. Some of those weeds are taller than the bus shelters. In fact, off-island visitors probably think they're natural flora to the Isle of Man. It is. That car park is absolutely filthy. And it isn't. I mean, heaven knows why people park in there, because you take your no-claims bonus in your hand when you walk in there. So if anybody can figure this out, and whether or not this development is going to work on Law Street, we'll see. When you see these vehicles driving around at the weekend on a Sunday with the wife and child sitting in there, says Stan on 303. I noticed yesterday getting on a bus, this is 951, dropped a note in, the road tax is £190 for a bus. Is that right? My little car is £205. Well, you can always see how much tax is paid, can't you, by looking on the tax disc. So our bus is £190. Government workers with vehicles are supposed to park on the nearest government property, e.g. schools or the NSC, says James. And why don't we travel at 20 miles per hour every morning and evening before they put it in law? Doing this will prove that it won't work. It won't take a lot of drivers, just one or two sticking to 20 miles per hour to cause congestion and put pressure on local police and bus services. Thanks to Ellie, who dropped a note in and said, do you talk about Summerland much on Manx Radio, on Mannin line? We do. We've talked about Summerland quite a lot in the past. And Ellie said, I was listening this morning and the story about the MP. Well, the campaign to overturn the Summerland verdict says it's fighting not just for victims and families, but for the credibility of the justice system. This is a human rights law firms confirmed last month it's applied for a new inquest on behalf of the Justice for Summerland group. 50 people died when fire tore through Summerland on the 2nd of August 1973. Heavens above, it's going to be 52 years this August. Now, pressure's growing on the Manx government from MPs in Westminster who are joining calls for the decision to be reviewed. They're led by the Warrington MP, Sarah Hall.
Initial response was to try and find other MPs that were wanting to get involved in the campaign, which we have done, and since that meeting actually, and since this latest update, other MPs have been in touch wanting to get involved as well. And I think our role is about keeping up that pressure now and keeping this in the public conscious, and absolutely working with our government and offering our support in any way that will help the campaign group at this point as well. So it's an ongoing process, and like I said, we're working very closely with Jackie and the campaign group, and we just hope that this gets the hearing that it deserves now.
Would you be able to tell us how many other MPs have joined you on?
I mean, off the top of my head, at least 10, I think, but it could be more, which is really, really positive. And I think because of the duration, the length of time this campaign's been going on, more and more people are starting to realise and understand what's happened, what the disaster was, and people are reaching out to their MPs, and their MPs are getting in touch with our group and also with the campaign group as well. What
is the feedback that you've been getting from speaking between yourself and your fellow MPs?
It's that wanting for justice. It's that, I mean, hearing from some of the people impacted, the pain and anguish that they've experienced, not only obviously for those that, were directly impacted on the day itself, but also since then, and the impact it's had on their lives as well. I mean, it's been life-changing and just absolutely awful. And I just hope, and we all just hope that something good can now come out of this, that the request for the inquest can be considered, and that we can get that justice that they've been fighting for so many years.
Any thoughts on this? Text, email, call, WhatsApp. I mentioned 52 years. But we've talked about it on Mannin Line in the past. Many people feel that we should do something, that it should be commemorated in some way, and that we shouldn't draw a veil over it, i.e. if we acknowledge it and do something positive, then we can move forward to the future. Touchstone that we always use is whenever we talk about the Solway harvester. It did the Isle of Man's reputation an enormous amount of good. Donald Gelling, as Chief Minister, they decided that we were going to bring the Solway harvester back up from the seabed and bring it to the Isle of Man. And it's something that, it's a very grim subject, but the Isle of Man can look at that with pride and say, we did the right thing. Now, I know it's 52 years ago. I know people have come and gone, and most of the people who are involved, sadly, are no longer with us, i.e. the people who were involved at a high level. But did we do the right thing? Or is it too late and we should just move on? Do you have any thoughts on the matter? Did I hear that right, says 068, a 14-storey building in Lord Street? It'll be a landmark, all right, and will overwhelm the whole area. I think it's hideous. I hope the whole thing has been cancelled. Why have a cinema? I thought cinemas weren't popular anymore. Oh, cinemas are popular. Not as popular as they used to be, but they are popular. I mean, we have 2 cinemas that do quite well because they're still in business. So, and this particular proposal has been around for a while. If you want more information, just go to manxradio.com, click on there, and you can see the proposal and the computer-generated images of what it's going to look like. Have they got the money to put it together? Well, we'll soon find out, because the planning permission, apparently, the planning application will be going in for that new look to what used to be the Lord Street bus station.
I am one car centre, the place to go. Great choice and prices so low. I am one car centre on Domain Road. Cars of every kind at prices that are hard to find. Visit on Facebook to see the range, or call 611 040. Great service, choice and prices low. I am one car centre, the place to go.
Sarah always admired her father's strength, but as years went by, she noticed subtle changes. His once sharp memory began to fade.
Dad, you forgot our Sunday lunch again.
With Man Benham, Sarah found a way to ensure her father's assets and dignity remained protected.
Now I know Dad's future's secure, no matter what.
Protecting tomorrow's peace of mind today. Learn more at manbenham.com or call us on 639 350.
Hey boy, how's it hanging, matey?
Oh, you know, fair to miserable.
Good as that. And are you looking forward to the beer festival?
Well, you better remind me.
10th to the 12th of April at the Villa. 120 real ales, 50 ciders and perries, fruit wines and mead if you've a sweet tooth at you. Music spots on Friday and Saturday too. And it's all in association with Manx Radio, so it must be good.
Well, now I know I'll be there.
Good man, you know it makes sense.
Having suffered their heaviest home defeat of the season last time out, can FC Isle of Man bounce back in the NWCFL Premier Division this weekend? Hoping to end their ever-increasingly difficult run of results, can the visits of Charnock Richard to the Bowl on Saturday help the Ravens get off the ground again? Join me, Rob Pritchard and Tony Mepham for FC Isle of Man versus Charnock Richard, kicking off at 6 p.m. on Saturday. Manx Radio will be bringing you full live match commentary on our DAB and AM 1368 channels. Live coverage of FC Isle of Man on Manx Radio is supported by Selton, investing in our community.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
25-1. It is noting from Shelley, who just said it would be nice to see the Isle of Man to have a cycling velodrome. We're talking about the cycling, the children's cycling, starting weekly sessions. Surely now is the time to put money into a velodrome so we can make the most of the talent for youngsters. Also, it gives people somewhere to go. And while we're at it, how about a 50-metre Olympic swimming pool? It would certainly put the Isle of Man on the map for world sports training facilities, may even encourage some sports people to come and live here for a few months at a time to do some training. We need more professional sports facilities, and obviously those people will then do sports. It's a healthy lifestyle and will reduce Manx Care's costs as well. So win-win-win all round. It's just paying for the darn thing. Thank you for that, Shelley. And Julian's on now. Hi, Julian.
Hi, Andy. 14 stories in Douglas. Isn't there some thing about vernacular when planning it, doing their considerations?
Well, I'm trying to think, what's the highest building in Douglas at the moment?
Well, possibly on the promenade.
It might be the old Peveril Hotel. That's quite high, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's what, 3-4 stories? I'd say something like that.
Yeah. 14 stories. Blimey, you'll be able to see Sellafield clear as anything from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's roughly 3 times the height of the highest building that's on the prom at the minute, or in Douglas you would have thought. But, you were mentioning earlier about electricity prices.
Yeah.
29p, and it might go up, but we don't know. But shouldn't we be really thinking about what the price should be, considering that the power station is supplied by gas, and the market price for the UK natural gas down the pipe from Norway is currently back where it was in May of 2021, which is almost a year before the Ukraine war started. And if people talk about, oh, well, it's world prices, Bahrain currently pays 4 pence a unit, Turkey the same, Kazakhstan the same, Russia pays 5p, and China pays 6p, as does India. So if it's world prices, should we be aiming to get back down to where we were back in May 21, which is 18 pence, and then we can talk about, because at the moment it seems to be artificially inflated, and there's talk that the MUA are trying to get back the differential high price that they paid. But surely at some point that's going to have to come to an end. It's not infinite, is it?
It might be nice to know where these costs come from. As you say, there's obviously an inflation from the natural cost to what we, the consumers, pay for. It would be nice to know what it amounts to and where it goes. As you say, I mean, places like Bahrain will get gas cheap as anything because they hit the world's largest reservoir of gas there about 5 years ago. And I think that's where a lot of the UK's frozen stuff comes from, because the UK's gas, I think, mainly comes frozen. It's sent around ships around the world and then goes to Milford Haven and then is distributed from there. So it will be nice to know, but whether or not we will know in the future, we don't know. But again, whenever people say it's going to be cheaper in the future, then we need to remember, if they say that electricity is going to be cheaper in the future with renewables, I mean, I applaud the fact if it is. Whether it is, we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at places that don't seem to have much in the way of renewables that aren't a million miles away from us, I mean, Serbia are paying 12 pence a unit. Canada, likewise. Morocco paying 10 pence a unit. I mean, are we supposed to be progressive? I mean, why are we paying 3 times more nearly than a lot of these countries? It seems odd, especially when you think that the meat and potatoes of our costs are the gas that's going in the power station. Well, even the UK is saying that the prices dropped massively. But the price was put up in the first place primarily because of the Ukraine war. But if the wholesale price is down now, why are we still looking at 29p? Surely we should be looking way lower than that.
And that's the point. And I don't know whether you remember, I think it was Laurie Hooper a couple of years ago said the way to sell net zero and renewables to the public is to tell them that it's going to be 5p per unit. If suddenly everybody knew that electricity was going to be as cheap as chips, or a lot cheaper than chips really, then people would buy it. People will always move towards something like that. However, nobody seems to be prepared to put a mark in the sand and say, this is how much it's going to be.
Well, don't forget, though, I mean, if you look at the cost of the green certificated electricity that's brought down the cable, that's twice as expensive to get it here as it is to generate at Pulrose. So if green is supposed to be cheaper, why is it double the price of what it costs to make at Pulrose, even now? I mean, we're obviously trying to recover costs, but the production costs are low because the actual gas that's being brought in is cheaper. So, I mean, I assume that we're having gas brought into the island at times. I mean, I know we have the containers on the harbour there, but we've also got the pipe that's coming in through the interconnector for gas. So if the wholesale price of gas is roughly the same as it was in May of 2021, is the actual production cost of the electricity cheap and we're just paying off the debt when it was jacked up? But that must end at some point.
But we don't know, and we're not being told. Nobody's making this plain. There's no transparency where this is concerned. And bearing in mind, Manx Utilities, is a government body. It's responsible to the public. It will be nice to know how, cost of goods, and then cost of manufacture, and then that's when it gets sent to you and me at 29p. But we'll see.
Yeah, because I think their charter is to do the best deal for the island, isn't it?
Well, there we are. That's what it says. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Cuba is paying 1 pence. So, you've got to wonder.
All right. Thanks for calling today. Good to hear from you.
Thanks, Andy. Cheers.
18 minutes to 1. I wonder when the steam packet's going to admit the Manxman is too deep for Douglas Harbour. Yes, the Manxman came in late. Well, it didn't leave Heysham until 10 to 4 this morning, got in about 7:15, by which time the Ben McCree was zipping around the bay. They did a little soft shoe shuffle. The Manxman came in, the Ben McCree went out, then the Manxman went out, the Ben McCree came in, and the Ben McCree went out later on this morning at 9:07. We don't know. Maybe it's just the tides. And we'll find out in the future. Our governments must think that we're a bunch of numpties, says Dave's words. They want to use 40 million of our money to build wind generators in the south. This also will be so that they get free electricity at our expense and then charge us the full amount to pay off the unanswered £50 million debt, says Dave. I mean, perhaps they could make it a lot more transparent and just tell us what the costs are going to be, what the likelihood of electricity being generated is. There will be a computer model somewhere to tell us how much is going to be generated and then how much we're going to be paying in the future. You mentioned net zero and the wind farm, says Alan. All I want to know is, if we became net zero tomorrow, by how much would we reduce the Earth's temperature? Not a lot, I'm guessing. Thanks also to presumably Gaz again. Presumably the government, therefore taxpayers, are paying the insurance premiums which permit workers to use vehicles for personal use. Again, we don't know. I went to the villa last night, says Ted, wheelchair users, so we went an hour earlier to get a disabled space. There were no spaces left in the villa or on the prom. Had to park in Market Street. It's a long push with the slopes to the villa. We need more spaces for wheelchair users, says Ted. I just wonder whether this affects you. Here's Ali on 123 in Summerland. I'm very sorry for the lady and the others lost at Summerland, but really it's time to let it go. The world 50 years ago was very different. You can't apply today's inquest standards on that world. Lessons in construction and evacuation and safety that have all been implemented globally were learned from mistakes. There is a memorial and an apology. There's nothing to be achieved. It's blunt to say this, says Ali, and tragic as it was, it's time for these people to address their grief and to move on. That's Ali's point of view. Obviously, the people involved in the Summerland campaign have another view. I wonder what yours is. The first of the sub-post offices is due to close at the end of the month, according to a letter received from Treasury. Governor's Hill Post Office is closing due to the withdrawal of the MyCard and stop selling £5 savings stamps. Governor's Hill Post Office is a large, busy shop. So how long is it going to be before other small sub-post offices close? So much for the assurances given by the Treasury Minister. That note is in from Dave. And Charlie's on now. Hi, Charlie.
Hello. Last time I looked in a DOT windscreen, it had a sign, tax exempt.
Really?
Yeah.
Tax.
I don't know. That was one department, but I tell you what, he's right. And there's 1,000 vehicles run down with tax exempt. No one draw road taxes, so do you?
It'd be nice to know if that's... I mean, now everybody's going to be looking at DOI vehicles, all government vehicles, to see whether they pay any tax. And why don't they pay any tax, I wonder?
Well, the reason I know that is a friend of mine was going to buy a van from the auction, and in the windscreen it had tax exempt.
Wow. And what sort of van?
He had to go, when he got it, he had to go and apply for what do you call them? Logbook.
All right. And was that a big van or a small van?
Medium size.
Okay. Right. Well,
I think it was a Renault Traffic. I think it was.
Right. So, well, if everybody, if you can listen, if you can look and see how much they pay, that would be nice to know. We can work that out. All right, Charlie. Thanks for calling today.
Okay, bye.
Cheers. Now, slightly off topic. No, everything's on topic here, Peter. Talking about tall Isle of Man buildings. The highest building in the Isle of Man is King's Court in Ramsey. Is it? Is it six-story? You may be right. The highest building on the, if you don't count the energy from waste plant, the King's Court in Ramsey, the highest residential building. If you're listening in King's Court, then tell us, is it? I'm pleased to hear, says Liam, pleased to hear that the Lord Street development is going ahead, and after the original developers withdrew the planning application, it'll make the quayside look nicer and provide much needed housing and improved transport facilities. The current bus station looks ancient, says Liam. We're used to the bus station now. I say bus station, it's basically a collection of bus stops, isn't it? And a pull-in. There's nothing station about it. If the cafe wasn't opposite, there'd be nothing to eat or drink. And next time you're there, count the number of chewing gum deposits on the pavements. And take a photo of the weeds there. They're getting quite sightly. It's about time the old stables building on the Prom is quickly put back into a respectable state. It looks like an eyesore at the moment. TT's just around the corner. And this is 470 talking about this. On the Department of Health and Manx Care review, it's very much horse before cart. You wouldn't appoint a new full-time chief executive of health if you're considering changing the structure, says this correspondent. And can anybody say about all the wood that's going away through Mezeron? Is it going off the island? There's lots of wood going off the island through Mezeron. Our Ramsey correspondents can tell us all about that. And again, lots of people talking about the 14-storey building in Lord Street and what it's going to look like in the future. Will it look okay? Well, of course, if you want to take a look, just go to manxradio.com and the details are on there. All government vehicles do not pay road tax, says Keith in Onken. Is that true? Don't government vehicles pay road tax? I agree with the lady who said, let Summerland go. We should stop living in the past. Move on, says Margaret in Ramsey. And Andy dropped a note in just to say, cheap as chips. You said cheap as chips. Since 2015, the average price of potatoes is up by 22%. So what's the percentage increase at the local chip shop? Well, chips aren't cheap, are they? So maybe what do we say then? If all the anti-climate change fellas are right on the sea levels are rising, it's a win-win situation as higher seas mean the Manxmen won't be stuck at the bottom of the dock. Obvious forward planning works. Says I know you're joking, I know you're joking. Also, a message in regarding... this is regarding... thank you, Catherine. Catherine drops a note in just to say, is it true that they're stopping face-to-face parent craft sessions for expectant mothers? They've still not been offered any additional support from the health service, despite a pledge from the DHSC minister that new online resources will be available from February. It was a while ago, I think it was early March, Joni Farragher said she wanted the decision to remove in-person sessions, to reverse it basically, because it's a cost-cutting measure for that. And again, if that's something that affects you, Joni Farrago was talking about this, and also I think the infant feeding sessions aren't going to be in person as well. Lots more questions, and regarding the organ donation, yes, there's the Human Tissue and Organ Donation Act, Daniel's Law, which is going to be implemented. Thank you to Colin, who just said, you mentioned that there are some public sessions. Where are they? When are they? Well, next Monday the 7th, this kind of complex, sensitive subject is, if you want to go along and just talk about it, the government are going to be there. The prom space at Loch Promenade Church in Douglas from 4 and then from 6 o'clock. 2 sessions, 4 and 6 p.m. on Monday the 7th, next Monday. Next Tuesday, Ramsey Town Hall, 4 and 6 p.m. The Tuesday after that, the 15th, Morton Hall, Castletown, 4 and 6 p.m. And then Thursday, the 24th of April, at the Western Wellbeing Centre in Peel at 4 and 6 p.m. So if you want it, once implemented, this law will mean that adults over the age of 18 who haven't opted out and are not in an excluded group will be considered as organ donors when they die. So if you haven't opted out, your organs could be transplanted. The law creates a regulatory framework for human tissue on the Isle of Man. So while this is going through, and I think we've talked about this in the past, and we've had some government people talking about the how human tissue is handled in the future. Well, we'll see. But if you want to pop along, next Monday is going to be the first one. Surely if government vehicles paid tax, they'd be robbing Peter to pay Paul, or am I missing something? Says Alison. My government van's tax is £300, says Dave, a government grafter. Who pays that, Dave? It'd be nice to find out once and for all, wouldn't it, whether or not all government vehicles pay road tax apart from the DOI, as they are the highway authority. They own the road network. They don't pay road tax. So what you're saying, James, is government vehicles pay road tax. The DOI doesn't, because they wouldn't want to send a bill to themselves. Seems strange, though, doesn't it? A quick mention also that Thursday, 24th of April, so that is 3 weeks today. The big news is it's polling day. It's election day. Local elections on the Isle of Man from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Of course, we'll have the results that night. So if you're currently getting stuff through your letterbox, people soliciting your votes, then you know why it is. And have a chat to them as well. That'll be a good idea. A mention also is, I've got a question to come from, I think it was Steve. Was it Steve? Steve. No. Stephanie. Hello, Stephanie. And you were saying about fluoride and what's going to happen. The healthy toothbrushing habits that have been talked about to improve oral health. Remember, as of December last year, 6,114 people were waiting for an NHS dentist on the Isle of Man. A third of them were under 18. Well. Maria's with us now. Hi, Maria.
Just to say, Andy, that when you mentioned the organ donation, it sounds like it applies to everyone.
It does. You have to opt out.
Yes, I know. I've opted out, and it only applies to you if you die in hospital.
Obviously, because you have to be in a clinical situation, don't you?
Well, absolutely. That's never been mentioned. Whenever it's been mentioned on the radio, it just sounds like it's there for everybody, wherever.
Well, I'm glad you did mention it. So you have to. It has to be people who die in hospital, not obviously people who die elsewhere.
That's right, because it's the time scale and the time lag of getting your organs if you're not in hospital, isn't it?
Okay, and you've opted out, have you?
I have, yes.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks for pointing that out, Marie. You're the first person to do that.
Well, I noticed it the other week, and I thought, I've got to ring you and mention it because people could be getting the wrong idea.
Okay, all right. Thanks for calling today.
You're very welcome.
Well, we're out of time. The victims of Summerland are long dead. No amount of petitions, inquiries or anything else will bring them back. I'm sorry, if their goal is to punish those responsible, you're 50 years too late, says Desmond. Or is the goal to get money? Well, what they've said, Desmond, in the past is this isn't about money. That's what they've said. We'll see. It's down to the Attorney General now. Right, that's it. It's a gorgeous day on the Isle of Man. Make the most of it. And we're back tomorrow, Friday lunchtime, with another open line on Manx Radio. That's it from Andy, and thanks to Chris on the phones today.
WINT